Chapter 671. Mo Hiling shouted loudly that she was pregnant. The woman beside her quickly said, "All right, Hiling. She's not in our circle anyway. She's of poor origins, so she definitely doesn't have money. Whose money would she spend if not Gu Jingze's? Now that she ran away from home, she can't turn back again. She must be regretting it terribly. Why don't we treat her to a meal?" Seeing as Gu Jingze hasn't come to look for her even now, it's likely that he is already irritated. He's already sick of her and doesn't want to seek her out anymore. After all, now that he even has a child with you and the two of you have been together for so long, he's ignoring Lin Che too for the sake of his child and his heir. In that case, Lin Che, that's all the more that you shouldn't make a fuss right now. The more you kick up a fuss, the more he will dislike you. You even dare to run away from home. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to return? Everyone looked at Lin Che with contempt. They felt that Lin Che was truly pitiful now that Mo Hiling's belly was so huge. Mo Hiling was currently looking at Lin Che somewhat arrogantly. However, just then, Gu Jingyan and Lu Baikan rushed out from inside after being informed by a waiter. Gu Jingyan and Lu Baikan appeared all of a sudden and looked at Lin Che and Mo Hiling. Then, Lu Baikan immediately walked towards them. "What's going on? What happened?" Gu Jingyan joined in. Sister-in-law, why is she here?" Mo Hiling's eyes went blank as she looked at the two of them come up behind Lin Che. Her heart seized up when she saw Lu Baikan. He had given her the chills the last time. Today, she still had lingering fears. Furthermore, Gu Jingyan was also here this time. Why had they come here with Lin Che to eat? Lin Che immediately saw that the girls behind Mo Hiling seemed to be very scared of Lu Baikan. They had already gone pale. She smiled and said, "Don't worry. The two of them probably have a lot of experience dealing with mistresses. I wonder if it's because they've been mistresses for many years or because they've been cheated on for many years and often meet other mistresses. Anyway, they were sharing their experience with me and giving me advice on how to get along well with a mistress and how to seize my husband's heart again. It's a pity that I don't need it." The two of them turned red from anger upon hearing the sarcasm in her words. But when they looked at the three of them, they immediately gave up and did not dare to criticize Lin Che. Standing at the back was Lu Baikan, whose reputation was so bad. They definitely did not want to be implicated. Gu Jingyan nearly laughed out loud upon hearing Lin Che's words. She also looked at Mo Hiling's big belly. It's also my first time seeing a mistress being so proud of that fact. What's more, this mistress insists on giving herself a high rank. My brother has already said so many times that he doesn't know where the child came from because he could not have touched you at all. You should know better than anyone whether or not he could have touched you. Yet you strut around with your large belly. Is it really good for you to behave like this? Do you not feel ashamed? Does your family not feel ashamed of you at all?" Mo Hiling looked at Gu Jingyan. "Gu Jingyan, I know that you never liked me since we were young. But I'm sure you know that your brother and I were in a relationship for many years. Right now, I'm taking back what belonged to me. Why should I feel ashamed?" "Relationship? You call that a relationship?" Gu Jingyan continued, "That was your own wishful thinking. If all one-sided feelings had to be returned, wouldn't this world be in a mess?" At this moment, Lu Baikan held Gu Jingyan back. "Enough. Why are you wasting your breath on her? Where is the manager here?" The manager rushed here from the other end. Lu Baikan asked, "What kind of shop is this? Do you take just anyone as a customer? Get this person out of here." The manager froze and looked at Mo Hiling's big belly. Of course, he did not dare to. That was Gu Jingze's child. Lu Baikan sensed the manager's hesitation and his eyes turned harsh. "Why, did you not hear what I said? Young Master Lu, this our shop is just a small business. One meal costs hundreds of thousands, but you call it a small business. Do you still want to operate? Oh, so you think that I don't have any right to speak? Are you going to offend me and stand on this mistress's side? Fine then, you can forget about running such an unethical business." No, young Master Lu. It's just that she's a pregnant woman. We're afraid that something will go wrong, the manager said hastily. Immediately, Mo Hiling pushed her stomach out even more. "You dare touch me, Lu Baikan, you can forget about living a good life if anything happens to my child." The two girls behind here were already scared into silence. They merely looked up at Liu Baiken anticipating his reaction. They thought that Liu Baiken probably did not have the guts to treat Mo Hilling harshly since this was a public place. However, Liu Baiken was obviously not as easy to get rid of as they thought. Liu Baiken said directly, "Manager, get them out of here. You won't be responsible for what happens to them. No matter what happens, I'll be responsible for it. But if she remains here, this restaurant of yours," his cold eyes shifted from Mo Hilling to the manager. "You can forget about running this restaurant." A shiver went through the manager's body. He looked at Liu Baiken and still seemed to be unable to accept this. Liu Baiken said, "I know that my reputation in B City has never been great. But now, I'm telling you that the rumors about me are all true. I'm precisely like that. If you oppose me, I will do everything I can to make sure you stay out of my sight." The manager immediately felt even more frightened. He weighed his options and quickly thought to himself, Liu Baiken was typically a stubborn person. If anyone offended him, especially in this sense, he would not let that person off. He would use every method to crush his opponent. He was simply the devil incarnate. No one could do anything about him. In the end, the manager could only look at Mo Hilling silently. Mo Hilling's eyes instantly widened. No way. You can't treat me like this. You can't." However, Liu Baiken stood tall with his hands behind his back with an expression of uncompromising decisiveness. The manager gestured for someone to escort Mo Hilling out. In comparison, Liu Baiken was more frightening. Mo Hilling shouted angrily as she was being pulled outside. "Liu Baiken, Lin Che, just you wait. Just you wait." Her friends were also looking on. They wanted to help Mo Hilling up but did not dare to. What were they supposed to do now? They did not expect that Liu Baiken and Gu Jingze had come here with Lin Che. Before this, they had even heard that Lin Che had been chased out of the house because of an argument with Gu Jingze. But in the end, Lin Che was here for a meal with Gu Jingze's younger sister and her brother-in-law. She did not look pathetic at all. It was obvious that they were all in this together as a family. Mo Hilling shouted after being chased out. Seeing that the people around her were looking at her curiously, her complexion turned pale and her eyes moved. Her stomach suddenly hurt a little and she sat firmly on the ground while shouting, "I can't go on. Doctor, call a doctor for me, quick. My stomach, my child." Chapter 672, I must teach him a lesson. In no time, Mo Hilling was sent to the hospital. Her friends followed her to the hospital. Mo Hilling held her stomach while she huffed and puffed in anger. Standing next to her on both sides, they said, "Hilling, we couldn't do anything either. We wanted to help you back then, but I'm sure you know how terrifying Liu Baiken is. He has always been very extreme. We definitely can't win against him, so we..." "Forget it. It's all right." Although Mo Hilling felt that they were not true friends, she decided to let it go after thinking about it. If she were standing in their shoes, she would not have dared to speak recklessly either. Nevertheless, Mo Hilling still clutched her bed furiously. When she saw her father rushing towards her, she called out to him, "Father, Lin Che was too much. Look, she chased me out just like that. My poor belly. If my child is hurt, even a little, I won't let her off. I won't let them off." Mo Hilling's father quickly called for someone to examine her. In the end, the diagnosis was indeed true that her condition had turned unstable because of her turbulent emotions. They gave her a calming injection and told her to rest. Because she had gotten pregnant through in vitro fertilization, it was very easy for her to have a miscarriage during this term. It was best for Mo Hilling to remain in bed and rest for the time being. Hearing this, Mo Hilling blamed this on Lin Che. Her father said, "All right, don't be so anxious. I'll give Gu Jingze a call. How can he let Lin Che do this? It's too much for her to treat a pregnant woman like this. How exactly did he take a liking to her?" Gu Jingze walked out with Lin Che. While walking, she said, "Sister-in-law, I realized that you're really quite good at using sarcasm against people." "Huh. What you said about them being mistresses. Dear me, it was such a classic." Gu Jingze tugged at Lin Che. "Sister-in-law, you've really learned how to be vicious with your words after being together with second brother. You don't even need vulgarities to criticize others. You're really something." Liu Baiken said, "That's enough. I went to check and it seems that Gu Jingze is at our house. Let's not go home first. Gu Jingyan asked, why? Second brother must have gone there to look for sister-in-law. What do you know? It wouldn't be good for us to kick up a fuss at home since my father is at home. It's better to stay outside. We can kick up as much a fuss as we want and no one will care. Hee hee, we'll stay outside and wait for Gu Jingze to come here. When the time comes, I'll see how Gu Jingze grovels and begs for forgiveness. No way, he had covered all bases just to make Gu Jingze suffer. Having said this, Liu Baikan actually brought Lin Che and Gu Jingyan to a bar. They ordered some snacks and drinks at the bar. Gu Jingyan wanted to drink alcohol here too, but Liu Baikan stopped her. He immediately snatched the menu from her and said, your temperament when you're drunk is so bad and you still want to drink. Just get some orange juice. What? I don't want that, I want sparkling water. Gu Jingyan snatched the menu back and continued ordering. She also ordered sparkling water for Lin Che. From one of the booths, someone saw Lin Che and mumbled, is that Lin Che? I think it is. However, they noticed Liu Baikan's gaze just when they were about to come over. Immediately, they were terrified by Liu Baikan and shifted their gazes. Liu Baikan pulled down the front of his shirt with both hands so that it straightened out. Then, he looked up only to see that Gu Jingze was actually here. Hey, you came so quickly. Lin Che still had water in her mouth. She nearly spit the water out when she heard Liu Baikan's words. She turned around to see Gu Jingze enter gracefully, his expression as cold as frost. He saw the three of them and walked towards them swiftly. Lin Che instinctively wanted to stand up. Since he had come to look for her, she unknowingly felt slightly guilty as she looked into his calm eyes. She felt as if she had somehow been exposed. However, after thinking about it carefully, she did not think that she had done anything wrong. She ran away from home because Gu Jingze had been in the wrong. She had nothing to be afraid of. It must have been Gu Jingze's overwhelming presence that inevitably invoked guilt in anyone he stared at. Gu Jingze approached them and immediately glanced at Liu Baikan and then at Lin Che. Then, he abruptly grabbed Lin Che's hand. Come home with me, he said. Lin Che looked up and was astonished to find that he had seized her hand. However, in the next moment, Liu Baikan pulled Gu Jingze's hand away. Hey, Gu Jingze. What are you doing? You're taking someone away from me the moment you arrive. Do you respect me at all? Gu Jingze looked at Liu Baikan. What are you doing? I'm going to take my wife home. Do I even need to get your approval and show you respect? Of course you do. Right now, Lin Che is an important guest at my house. Since she's staying at my house, I must take responsibility for her safety. Liu Baikan crossed his arms over his chest. His righteous manner was extremely annoying. Gu Jingze looked like he could not be bothered with him. He looked at Lin Che and asked, are you going to come back with me? Liu Baikan immediately came between them. Why, are you threatening Lin Che? For a moment, Gu Jingze truly wanted to punch Liu Baikan's irritating face. Move aside. Liu Baikan, what are you doing? Do you want to fight me? Liu Baikan raised his eyebrows. If you insist on starting a fight, I can only fight to the end. After you've treated Lin Che this way, how can I let you casually take her away? Gu Jingze's brow was furrowed deeply. He defended himself lowly. What did I do to Lin Che? Liu Baikan said, what do you think? Of course, you bullied her. You two-timed her and even lied for no reason. You even tried to defend yourself when you got caught red-handed. Gu Jingze's breath got stuck in his throat. He truly felt that Liu Baikan was becoming more and more unlikable. He looked at Lin Che behind him. She was pursing her lips while looking at the ground. She also looked angry. Gu Jingze could only say, Lin Che, I accompanied Mo Hiling to the hospital only because she said that she was going to abort the child. Lin Che's eyes flashed and she looked up. Mo Hiling also said earlier today that you would definitely say that you accompanied her to get an abortion. She was right. Does Miss Mo understand you that well? Gu Jingze asked. Did she say that? You saw her today? Yes, at that restaurant the two of you often went to in the past. Gu Jingze held his forehead. He still wanted to speak but was interrupted by Liu Baikan again. That's enough. In any case, it's too late for you to explain it now. It would have been honest of you to explain it when it happened. But if you're only doing it now, you're just making excuses. Right, Lin Che. Lu Baiken nudged Lin Che by the shoulder. Lin Che nodded. That's right, that's right. For a moment, Gu Jingze was in disbelief. You guys. Lu Baiken said, thus, now that you're already in the wrong, Lin Che can't go home with you. Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che. Are you really on his side? Seeing that Gu Jingze was alone in this, Lin Che's heart softened a little. But she did think that he needed to be taught a lesson, so she hardened her stance again. Chapter 673. Sure, then I'll stay at the Lu residence for the time being too. If she did not teach him a lesson, he would only continue bullying her. Humph. I'm still a guest at the Lu residence. I don't want to go back yet. Gu Jingze's face crumbled. Lu Baiken immediately raised his eyebrows and asked, you heard what Lin Che said, right? Gu Jingze stared at Lu Baiken. Can you go elsewhere to cause trouble if you have nothing better to do? Lu Baiken asked, why do I have to go elsewhere? It was definitely his first time seeing the great President Gu in such a difficult position. Why would he cause trouble elsewhere if he could do it here? Was he crazy? Lu Baiken looked at Gu Jingze as if he was here to watch a show. It was even more irritating. Seeing his attitude, Gu Jingze clenched his teeth and suppressed his anger so that he would not lose his composure out of anger. He tried his best to pretend that Lu Baiken did not exist and said directly to Lin Che, come home with me. We'll talk about this again once we're home. I have other things to discuss with you too. I said that I don't want to. I want to stay longer at the Lu residence. You. Gu Jingze glanced at Lu Baiken. He knew that he could forget about taking Lin Che away as long as Lu Baiken was here. They would definitely not come to an agreement if he was here stirring up a row. He had to take Lin Che out first. It would be easier for him to discuss this with her if they were alone. Thus, while Lu Baiken was putting on airs, Gu Jingze suddenly reached past Lu Baiken and grabbed Lin Che directly. Lu Baiken clearly had not expected this either. When Gu Jingze had already walked past him, he instinctively cursed, what the fuck? Gu Jingze, are you really going to take her away from me? After speaking, he immediately darted towards Gu Jingze and hugged him from behind. Lin Che was stunned. What was he doing? Gu Jingze was swiftly pulled backward when Lu Baiken hugged him by the waist. Gu Jingze clenched his teeth and wanted to shrug off Lu Baiken's arms. However, it was difficult for Gu Jingze to exert force as he was behind him. He could only call out Lu Baiken's name with a displeased expression. Lu Baiken, you better let go of me. How dare you take her away? You want to take Lin Che away without giving me anything in return? That's impossible. Lu Baiken was already panting from hugging such a huge man and being shaken sideways by him. However, he still refused to let go. Unfortunately, the two of them were very strong. Both of them exercised regularly as well, so their stamina was great. They really seemed to be evenly matched, and even more so when neither was willing to admit defeat. Gu Jingze looked at the security guard who was looking at them from outside in surprise. Then, he immediately said, get this person out of here. Lu Baiken turned around, glanced at the guard, and hastily responded, get me out of here. If you dare to come here, I'll destroy your bar. Go ahead, let him destroy it. Whatever he breaks, I'll pay twice the costs. Ha, I'll see who dares to come here. If he's paying, I'll break even more things. He has so much money anyway. He'll be able to pay for it. I have enough energy too. I'm not afraid of breaking everything. It's just that you probably won't be able to continue running this business of yours. The staff immediately looked at one another. What were they supposed to do about this? They took a closer look and saw that one was Gu Jingze and the other was Lu Baiken. One was the older brother and the other was his brother-in-law. Why were they even fighting? Were they really about to start a fight, or were they just playing around? If they were just playing around, the staff definitely did not dare to disturb them recklessly. If they were really going to start a fight, all the more the staff would not dare to get involved. However, the two of them attracted the attention of all the people in the restaurant in no time because their actions were still too aggressive even though they did not really look like they were angry. Lin Che looked at the two of them wrapped around each other and swayed unsteadily from side to side. Then, she looked at the expressions of the people around them. She really felt like she was going to die from embarrassment. How childish could they be? Gu Jingze could no longer tolerate it too. She watched as the two of them were deadlocked. Then, she crossed her arms and asked, "Hey, are you guys done fighting? Each of you should give in a little and see if you can reach a compromise. If not, let's go back and look for a place for you to fight. Don't put on a performance in public, alright?" Lin Che quickly frowned and yelled, "Gu Jingze, are you really going to cause trouble here? Stop fighting, alright?" Of course, Gu Jingze and Lu Baikan completely ignored everyone else. Gu Jingze focused all of his attention on pushing Lu Baikan's hand away while Lu Baikan squeezed Gu Jingze with all his might. The two of them fell onto the ground in no time. Everyone started yelling as they moved backward. As they looked at the two of them flushed with anger, they could not help but suspect that the two of them were actually fighting. One belonged to the Gu family and the other belonged to the Lu family. If they fought, it would cause such a stir in C Nation in the future. However, although the two people fighting were very immature, they did not look that pathetic. Ultimately, handsome men were handsome. They still looked very handsome even when they were rolling on the ground. Just then, Gu Jingze pulled Lu Baikan to his feet. Lu Baikan continued to hug his waist, refusing to let go. There was nothing Gu Jingze could do. He looked down at Lu Baikan who was hanging on his waist. Alright, stop messing around. He fell onto the couch soon after. Lu Baikan followed suit and fell onto the couch as well. Seeing that Gu Jingze had already given up on grabbing Lin Che, Lu Baikan observed for some time before letting go. Then, he said, "Good lord, I'm dying of fatigue. Quick, bring me some beer. Cold beer. Damn it, my damn sweat is about to drip down." Hearing this, the staff beside them instructed someone to get some cold beer. Gu Jingze also took the chance to grab a beer and drank a mouthful of it. Lin Che and Gu Jingze quickly walked towards them. They sat down across them and looked at them speechlessly. Lin Che said, "I really don't know if anything came out of that fight." Gu Jingze said, "Something came out of it. Look, everyone around them is looking at them. Everyone will definitely know about this tomorrow." Indeed, everyone was still watching curiously. They saw the two of them fight for some time before sitting down again. They looked calm as they each started drinking beer on their own. The four of them looked extremely harmonious. The atmosphere was now completely different from the atmosphere earlier. The people around them immediately thought that city dwellers like them really knew how to have fun. They did not understand why these wealthy people were in the habit of fighting each other for no reason. Perhaps they played around like this only because they were very close to each other. Lu Baikan lay there motionless. Gu Jingze also seemed bored sitting there. Lu Baikan said, "I haven't exercised for such a long time. Seriously, I can't even win against you." Gu Jingze scoffed and drank his beer in a show of contempt towards him. Lu Baikan chuckled, "But you still can't bring Lin Che back without my approval." Gu Jingze raised his refined eyebrows. He looked completely calm as he said, "In that case, I won't take her back then." Gu Jingze stood up. Lu Baikan looked at him in shock. "What are you going to do?" Gu Jingze straightened his clothes. "Your house is so big. You can always make some space for me, right?" Lu Baikan thought about it and realized that he wanted to move in. "Hey, Gu Jingze. What are you up to?" Gu Jingze broke into a smile. In a slightly conniving tone, he said, "Ever since my sister got married to you, I haven't spent time with her for a long time. This time, I want to go to her place to stay for a while. I'm sure that's fine, right?" When he was done speaking, Gu Jingze glanced meaningfully at Lin Che across him. One glance and Lin Che immediately felt like a gust of cold wind was attacking her. She constantly felt that Gu Jingze was telling her, "I won't let you off. Watch how I sort you out this time." Chapter 674, Must You Be So Angry? Lin Che turned around sheepishly. She nearly wanted to just follow after him, but Lu Baikan stopped her immediately. Don't be afraid of him. You have an older brother here to support you. Don't worry. This isn't his territory. This is your older brother's territory. I definitely won't let you lose out. Lin Che immediately looked at Lu Baiken innocently. She would be relying entirely on him for the next few days. Very quickly, Lu Baiken drove the two of them back to the Lu residence. Sure enough, after going in, they saw that bodyguards from the Gu family were here. The maids came out from inside. Shocked, they said, "Second young master came earlier and said that he was going to stay for a few days. Old master instructed us to prepare a room for him. Right now, second young master has gone to see old master." Lu Baiken said, "Hey. Everyone says that I'm shameless. I've finally met someone even more shameless than me. Is there anyone as terrible as him? He even came to my house." Lin Che could only shrug. She looked to the side with her heart frozen. For some reason, she felt that she would have a pretty hard time over the next few days. The moment she arrived at the Lu residence, Lin Che quickly retreated to her room. She did not dare to leave her room again the entire day. If Gu Jingze caught her, she was definitely done for. She had caused Gu Jingze to get into a fight with someone at a bar. Even thinking about it made her feel that death was near. Lin Che whipped out her phone to check her WeChat. She discovered that people were actually discussing the incident. The comments were about how Gu Jingze and Lu Baiken had just had a huge fight in a bar for all to see. No one had dared to break up the fight. Many people lamented, "Is this for real? Did anyone take any photos? Why didn't you say so earlier? I didn't get to see it. What a pity, I would have gone to watch if I found out about it earlier. I go to that place very often. That's the bar Lu Baiken frequents." Further down below, Lin Che even found a comment targeting her. It said that she had gotten into a fight with Gu Jingze and that he had even chased her out of the house. According to the rumors, the neighbors had seen Lin Che leaving the house without taking anything with her and immediately told other people about it. These people really like to make up stories. That night, Lin Che had still not left the room to eat anything. One of the maids knocked on her door and said, "Madam Gu, our young master, and young madam are having a barbecue in the backyard. They asked you to go as well." "The backyard?" "Yes, it's just around the corner. You'll know once you go there." Lin Che had no choice but to go out. She looked around and saw no trace of Gu Jingze. Then, she asked softly, "Where is Gu Jingze?" "Mr. Gu said that he had work to do and hasn't come back yet." "Fantastic." Lin Che stretched her leg out loosely and stretched her body. Then, she followed the maid out. When they arrived outside, the maid said, "Madam, this way please." Lin Che walked out of the courtyard and asked the maid, "Did they go outside to have the barbecue?" "Yes, madam. The houses here are not that compact. There are very large empty spaces and there's an eco-park behind the house. This place is particularly spacious, so it's a very suitable venue for leisure. Young master often holds barbecues here." All right, this place was located some distance away from the city area. As Lu Tingyu preferred a quiet atmosphere, he did not buy a house in the central district and instead chose to live in a place that was farther away. The good thing was that the air was really very good here. It lifted her spirits and seemed to make her feel at ease as well. Sure enough, when she looked into the distance, she saw a barbecue grill and a large lamp. Lu Baiken, Gu Jingyan, and Gu Jingze were all there. Lin Che's body shriveled up the moment she saw Gu Jingze. Didn't they say that he wasn't around? However, Gu Jingyan had already caught sight of Lin Che. She called out to her and said, "Come here, sister-in-law. You're too slow." Lin Che had no choice but to go over. Gu Jingze was sitting on a high chair with his legs propped up. He turned around to look at Lin Che with misty eyes, filling her mind with delusional thoughts. Lin Che quickly turned around. She found a seat furthest away from Gu Jingze and hastily sat down. However, she did not expect Gu Jingze to start inching closer towards her. Subsequently, he inched even closer upon seeing that Lu Baiken was so focused on manning the grill. By the time Lin Che noticed, he had already inched his way into Lin Che's danger zone. She whipped her head up and looked at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze immediately said, "Lin Che, I'll apologize to you. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. But Mo Hilling did tell me that she was going to get an abortion that day. It's just that in the end, it turned out that she was just fooling around. So I thought there was no need to tell you. Hearing this, Lin Che looked up at him. You can explain all you want. I'm listening, but it's my choice whether or not to believe you. You Lin Che. Lin Che turned away. Gu Jingze kept staring at Lin Che with his lips pursed. It was only after a long time that he turned around to say, "Fine, Lin Che. Don't regret this." Lin Che scoffed only to see Gu Jingze look at her and stand up immediately. Then, he walked into the distance. He seemed to be moving further and further away and he slowly disappeared into the darkness. Lin Che felt a little strange and her heart slowly turned cold. She could not help but wonder if she had gone too far. She had simply been kicking up a fuss, but it seemed that she had made it too realistic. Gu Jingyan looked up. Hey, where did my brother go? Lin Che paused for some time before standing up and saying, I'll go and take a look. She instinctively stood up and walked out. She looked for him outside but did not see him. Her heart sank even further. Had he left out of anger? She looked closely at her surroundings again. All of a sudden, she saw Gu Jingze's figure in the dark. He was standing there all alone. Lin Che hurried over. Gu Jingze. She called out to him but Gu Jingze did not respond. Lin Che frowned as she approached him. Are you angry? Think about it, Gu Jingze. You got so angry just from hearing my words then. I must have been so angry when Mo Hilling said those things to me, right? She approached him from behind and reached out her arm to touch him. However, Gu Jingze moved and immediately pushed her hand away. You. Lin Che felt slightly hurt. She did not dare to touch him out of fear that he would push her away again. She crossed her arms in front of her and stood there watching him. All right, I know that you're angry. You're right, by running away from home like this, I'm humiliating you. I even caused you to get into a fight with someone at the bar and injured your reputation even further. But before Lin Che finished speaking, she sensed a sudden light around her. Something was floating towards them. Initially, Lin Che could not see clearly. Later, she suddenly realized that these specks which filled the air around her were actually fireflies. The fireflies were like an array of stars floating towards them one by one from the distance. In no time, their greenish light was everywhere. Lin Che simply felt that everything before her eyes was part of a dream. In the darkness, these lights formed a layer around her body. Lin Che blinked in awe. She looked up at this wondrous scene and felt as if her world had been overturned. Chapter 675, Gu Jingze's romantic proposal. What exactly was this? She looked around with her hand over her mouth. Wow, this place, it really looks like the Milky Way. Just then, the warm body close to hers had unknowingly moved closer to her. She did not realize it even when it came into contact with her body. It was only when she sensed a gentle gaze from beside her that she slowly turned her head around. Immediately, she saw the man before her with eyes as deep as the starry sky. There was a hint of a smile in his eyes and a gentle warmth more constant than what the Milky Way exuded from them in waves. His hand had already instinctively moved to her shoulder. He looked at Lin Che with his eyes narrowed sensually as if he was tipsy. He looked up at Lin Che and said, I told you earlier that you would regret it. The words that came out of his thin lips were ridiculously sensual. He smiled faintly while looking at her. Against the background of countless lights, he said to her, even though you really took it so far, since you know that you were in the wrong and even voluntarily came after me, I'll reward you. Huh, what? She looked up at him. She did not know when a blue velvet box had suddenly appeared in his hands. She paused for a bit with her eyes fixed on the box. He opened the box delicately. Inside was a diamond that sparkled even more than the stars. It dazzled brightly under the starlight. He slowly brought the diamond up and looked at her. Lin Che, I know that you've been under a lot of stress lately. I know that you're angry with me. I know that it's my fault for making you go through this stress with me. Lin Che's throat bobbed and a sour feeling made its way up her nose. Yes, she was under a lot of stress but she had never voiced it. To be honest, she was not afraid of pressure either. She had been trained since she was young and was able to withstand very high amounts of pressure. However, she was afraid that there were too many of these incidents, so many that she and Gu Jingze would really break up one day. Gu Jingze said, but even so, even if you're stressed out from being together with me, being second-guessed, being cursed at, and being scolded, I still don't want to let you go. I don't want to set you free at all and let you be at ease. On the contrary, I want us to just get married. Lin Che seemed like a complete fool as she stood there and watched Gu Jingze lift the ring up. He gazed at her face and said, let's hold our wedding soon. Lin Che looked up. For a moment, she felt that her eyes were heating up and her lips were trembling. Are you proposing to me right now? Gu Jingze said, no. Seeing as Lin Che was not budging at all, Gu Jingze pulled her hand up directly and put the ring on her finger while saying, I'm kidnapping you as my bride. What? Lin Che saw that the ring was already on her ring finger. Although the ring was very light, she, nevertheless, felt that a heavy object suddenly seemed to have been placed on her hand. Gu Jingze said, because I won't allow you to refuse the ring and I won't allow you to reject me either. Alright, he really was kidnapping her as his bride. But it was truly a romantic kidnapping. Lin Che lifted her hand to look at the ring that was glittering in gold. Gu Jingze smiled as he looked down and grabbed her hand. He clasped her hand tightly in his hand along with the ring. Thereafter, he lowered his head and quickly captured her lips in a kiss. He was really good at skipping steps. She still had not said, I do. She still had not looked up and stood on her tiptoes allowing him to kiss her. However, he had already taken the initiative to kiss her, pressing his lips to hers and roughly prying them open. Hey, hey, hey. Shouldn't proposal kisses be light? Why was this kiss deepening more and more, and even continuing for such a long time? Lin Che only sensed that something was amiss when she heard some strange buzzing sounds from behind her. She hastily pushed Gu Jingze away and looked up only to see Gu Jingyan and Lu Baikan watching them from behind. Gu Jingyan looked at the fireflies all around them and then at the couple standing in the middle of all this. Then, she smiled and said, second brother, you can really shock someone to death when you try to be romantic. However, Lu Baikan stood at the side with his arms crossed. Pity that you're so old-fashioned. Gu Jingyan replied, what do you know? No matter how old-fashioned it is, girls will like it anyway. Ha, are you telling me that you want a proposal like this too? It's a pity that you definitely won't have one in this lifetime since you're already married to me. I'm married, but I can still marry again in the future. What did you say, Gu Jingyan? Lu Baikan's expression changed completely. Lin Che looked at the two of them speechlessly. Suddenly, she realized that something was amiss. Her eyes widened as she pointed at the two of them. Hey, you guys didn't plan this with Gu Jingze way beforehand, right? Lu Baikan broke into a sheepish smile. Well. Gu Jingyan said, of course. You don't know Lu Baikan well enough. 1 billion RMB in capital funds is enough to bribe him. Whatever he said about looking after you like an older brother, they were all just fancy words. Lu Baikan glared at Gu Jingyan and said to Lin Che, my younger sister, I wanted to help you too. For real, I've always been on your side. But the thing is, Gu Jingze wanted to propose to you. He said that he wanted to hold a wedding with you, so I had no choice but to help him. I was being considerate of you. You were just trying to be a little difficult anyway. You weren't really planning to divorce him. Fine, he was really unreliable. Gu Jingze put his arm around Lin Che, looked down, and said, see. Now, you know that you can't believe any other man except me in the future. Lu Baikan said, you're the one she shouldn't trust. Look at how well you acted earlier. You seemed genuinely angry and were throwing a tantrum like a child. I was so surprised that I thought you were really being difficult, but in the end it was all to trick Lin Che into approaching you. All is fair in love and war, Gu Jingze said nonchalantly with his eyebrows raised. Gu Jingyan said, all right. Since we're done here, can you bring back some of these fireflies for me? Ah, right, there were still many fireflies. Lin Che looked at the fireflies. Wow, where did you get so many fireflies? Gu Jingze replied, we caught them. Come on, let's go have some barbecue. Oh, okay. Lu Baikan shook his head and told Gu Jingyan, look. I was helping Lin Che by doing this. At the very least, she has successfully gotten through a day. If not for my help, of course, she would not match Gu Jingze's intelligence. Gu Jingyan asked, what? Did you think that we caught the fireflies? There are so many. There must be at least a few thousand fireflies. How could we have possibly caught them? We paid a high price to have them shipped over. We even had them shipped here from the far south only today. Do you really think this is romantic? We were totally burning a hole in our wallets. Sure enough, people found out about the proposal that night. Someone directly commented on WeChat, Gu Jingze spent a lot of money buying so many fireflies. I heard that it was to create a romantic setting for Lin Che. Wow, fireflies. It sounds so romantic. Gu Jingze treats her so well. Chapter 676. How could they think of holding their wedding at a time like this? When you have money, you don't have to think about it. You can have romance if you want to have it. It only depends on whether you want it or not. Dear me, I really want a boyfriend like Gu Jingze. Hey, you're so greedy. If it were me, I wouldn't even need Gu Jingze to be so romantic. It would be enough for Gu Jingze to be my boyfriend, even if he was out playing around all the time. It wouldn't matter if he did anything wrong, I would forgive him completely just by looking at his face. These people. Jokingly, they looked at each other disdainfully before scattering in all directions. Gu Jingze was still going to stay at the Lu residence for the night. That night, Gu Jingze sneaked into Lin Che's room directly. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze gloomily. You, why did you come here in the middle of the night? Not daring to switch on the lights, she looked at the man at the door and saw that he was a little gloomy. They had already agreed to stay in 2 different rooms so that they would not roll around in bed together and cause the maids to speculate and spread rumors everywhere out of boredom. But Gu Jingze had actually come to knock on her down in the middle of the night. Gu Jingze held her chin and pushed her directly against the wall before kissing her lips. It's fine, no one saw me. He stuck his leg out and closed the door at the same time. Then, he pressed her up against the wall immediately. At the hospital. At least 10 people sent messages to Mo Hiling and called her to tell her that everyone was talking about how Gu Jingze had proposed to Lin Che and the 2 of them were about to hold their wedding very soon. Mo Hiling sat there and looked at the messages over and over again. She could not believe it. She could not believe it. It might have been a rumor if it came from only one person, but if everyone was saying the same thing. Mo Hiling sat there and let out a shout. She thought to herself indignantly, Lin Che, you're so shameless. What are you trying to prove by holding a wedding now? You've already been married for so long, but you're only holding a wedding now. What exactly are you trying to prove? Mo Hiling whipped out her phone. With her eyes narrowed, she spoke lowly into her phone and said, Father, do me a favor right now. The next day, Abby called Lin Che to ask where she was. Then, she came to the Lu residence to look for Lin Che so that they could go to the company together. As Yu Minmin had yet to return from S City, Lin Che had to oversee matters in the company. However, she and Yu Minmin had divided their responsibilities. She was in charge of acting while Yu Minmin was in charge of managing the company's affairs. Thus, she was completely unable to understand some of the documents. When she asked Abby, Abby had trouble even looking at them and could only say, it looks like I have to learn a little bit about how to do these things. Lin Che said, sure. You can learn it if you're interested. There is skilled personnel in the company who can help you too. Abby said, it's not that I'm interested in it. I just find myself a failure because I'm so useless right now. Lin Che looked at those numbers and forms. She was left with no choice but to ask the great company president for help. Thus, she immediately called Gu Jingze and said, Gu Jingze, what do I do? I can't understand these figures at all. What figures? Some figures from the company. On the other end of the line, Gu Jingze remained silent for some time before saying, bring it to me and I'll help you look at it. You mean go to your company? What else? Are you telling me to go to your company to take a look at it? He was right, she was the one asking him for help. It would not be nice to ask him to come over. She hastily agreed and went to Gu Jingze's company with the documents. Meanwhile, Abby stayed at the company to learn about other things. Abby loitered around the company in intense boredom. Everyone was extremely polite to this rich young heiress and left her alone to loiter around. Abby walked around and heard someone speaking. It turned out that she was in a practice room. She went in and saw a boy standing there and talking. He had a handsome appearance and had a very sunny disposition. From his face, it appeared that he was at most a few years older than her. He still looked very young. She stood there, finding him quite amusing. However, after watching for some time she accidentally stepped on something. With a resounding click, the young man inside saw Abby. "Ah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you," Abby quickly said. The person inside happened to be Shui Yong. He looked at Abby and said, "Oh, it's you." He then closed his script. Abby walked in. "Do you know who I am?" Everyone in the company knows that you're Abby. You're the rich heiress from Los Angeles who came back with Sister Che." Abby walked towards him and saw that he was still packing up his things. She could not help but ask, "Really? Did they all know me? Hey, what were you doing earlier?" "I was practicing my positioning," Shui Yong continued, "for a television series." "Oh, so you're an actor. No wonder you look quite handsome." It was true. Abby had seen all kinds of men. There were countless handsome men in Hollywood of different nationalities and different types. So to her, Shui Yong was considered a pretty good-looking man. He was not the most handsome, but he gave off a very pure and pleasant aura. It was probably his young age and his youthful demeanor that made him seem innocent. At her compliment, he turned around to look at her. She tilted her head and smiled. She asked, "What is your role?" Shui Yong replied, "I'm the second male lead this time and have more scenes than usual. It's my first time having so many scenes, so I must practice." The second male lead is that a very difficult role to get. Sister, you went through many difficulties to ask for the role on my behalf. I only got the role after I successfully passed the audition. It sounds like being an actor is a very difficult job. Not really. You can probably be one if you want to, he said as he pulled his backpack off the ground and carried it on his back. Seeing that he was about to leave, Abby chased after him and asked, "What do you mean? I can be one if I want to. I heard that your family is very rich. As long as you want it, your father will definitely invest so that you can be an actress. Furthermore, you have a pretty good image. It will be easy for you to become famous." "Hey," she continued, "you think that I'm a rich heiress, right? That I live a comfortable and luxurious life. That I can get whatever I want, whenever I want it, right?" The way she challenged Shui Yong immediately reminded him of someone else. Annie, Lu Yunxi. As Eric's most beloved daughter, she lived a comfortable and luxurious life. However, in actual fact, she could not do anything she wanted to do. He paused and turned around to look at her. After hesitating slightly, he asked, "Are you living in Los Angeles?" "Not really. My father has properties in many parts of America. I can basically stay wherever I want to, but I really don't know where I live exactly." There were many places where she could stay. But this also meant that she did not know if she had a true home. Shui Yong asked, "Oh. Then, do you know Eric's family?" "Ah, of course, I do." "Do you know their daughter, the one named Annie?" I think I've met her before." "Why, do you know her?" Shui Yong nodded and sucked in a breath before smiling. "You can say that." Although Abby was very curious, she could only continue walking out with him, seeing that he was not willing to divulge too much. Chapter 677. Boohoo, she had offered her body in exchange for this. Shui Yong thought of Lu Yunxi. Then, he looked at Abby again. Whether it was Abby or Lu Yunxi, they lived very different lives from him. However, he wondered how he had unexpectedly encountered them. He found it very amazing when he thought about it. However, Shui Yong had already understood from his experience with Lu Yunxi that they definitely lived in different worlds. The gap between them was too large. As a result, although others were probably slightly more cautious towards Abby, only Shui Yong felt that it was totally unnecessary. Anyway, she did not need any more people bowing down to her. If he did the same, he would be tired too. It was better for him not to do anything. Abby continued following him. "Hey, what are you going to do now?" "I'm looking for a place to practice." Why, am I distracting you a lot by being here? Abby asked. Shui Yong looked at her. What do you think? Alright. Hey, you can't say that either. There are so many people watching you when you act. I've seen how shoots go. The studio may be full of people around you during the shoot, but you must still continue acting. You can't stop acting just because I'm here, right? And I'm the only one here too. Shui Yong frowned. She was right when he thought about it. His only excuse was that he subconsciously did not want her to look at him because her presence was too strong. Abby blinked. I'm so bored. Let me practice together with you. Which part do you want to practice? I'll do it with you. Shui Yong had an expression of helplessness on his face. Abby continued blinking and attempting to persuade him. Look, if you can continue acting even with me here, it will prove that you're a good actor. Don't you think so? Although she made sense. Come on, come on. This is the script, right? Let me look at it. However, Abby had already taken out the script and started reading it. There was nothing Shui Yong could do but calm himself down and watch her while she did this. When Lin Che arrived at Gu Jingze's company, she saw that the entrance was completely surrounded by people. She quickly covered her face and turned away whenever someone looked at her. Then, she went to the side to wait for him. People went in and out of the entrance and she was afraid that someone would recognize her. Fortunately, Chin Hao came out soon after to bring her in. Upon seeing Lin Che hiding there, he quickly walked towards her. Madam, you're here. Sir is upstairs. Okay. It's great that you're here. Let's go. The two of them entered the company from the back entrance. By the time they arrived at Gu Jingze's office, the people outside seemed to think nothing of it. They merely glanced at Lin Che curiously. Inside his office, Gu Jingze seemed extremely busy at the moment. He looked at Lin Che and cupped his hands in greeting. Then, he said, Come. What do you not understand? Lin Che took the documents out of her bag. Just these things. Look at them. There are some figures that I don't understand at all. I've returned all the math I know to my former teachers. Gu Jingze took the documents from her and glanced at them. Then, he said grudgingly, this has nothing to do with math. You only need to swap the columns a bit and the results will appear. The numbers will immediately be clear. They're all there, the balance for this month, the number of employees and the categories of expenditure, but there are some problems with this table. They probably didn't use the correct formulas in the calculations. The design of the table isn't simple enough. With your level of intelligence you definitely wouldn't understand it. How mean. I don't understand any part of what you just said. Of course, we don't learn these things at our drama academy. For our cultural modules, we only learned English and university math. Each major has its specialization. These things contaminate our art. Of course, we won't learn them. Enough. Move aside. Gu Jingze shook his head helplessly. He felt like he could not do anything about this woman who only knew to look for excuses. He picked up the phone on the table and made an internal call for the secretary to come in. Take this table to the finance department and ask them to make up a new one. Ah yes, President Gu. The secretary was about to bring it out. Lin Che hastily asked, can you redo it? Of course, but this is confidential information. Are you comfortable with letting my subordinates handle it? Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che with his eyebrows raised. Lin Che thought, what was there to be worried about? There was really nothing to be worried about. To an organization as huge as the Gu Industries, this small table was basically nothing. It's fine. If you took over our company, I would be under the banner of your company. That would sound so impressive. Gu Jingze smiled and looked up to tell his secretary, go ahead. The secretary looked at Gu Jingze's mysterious smile and was truly stunned. His bashful expression really made her doubt if this person was Gu Jingze. After going out, she quickly took a look at the table and realized that it was just a typical financial table. Chin Hao approached her and she said to him in disbelief, our president Gu is seriously, he has even started helping such a small company with their financial tables. I feel like our president Gu's worth has plummeted to an all-time low. Chin Hao looked at it and shook his head with his hands clasped behind his back. What worth does President Gu have here? Then, what should I do with this table? Who from the finance department should I assign this task? Of course, Deputy Head Chen should be the one to do it. Asking a person who calculates more than 100 million in fund circulation a day to calculate this. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you still want a promotion and a pay raise? If you don't want to do it, I'll do it. It's just that President Gu thinks nothing of my shitty work. You're so tactless. You don't have any sense at all. Qin Hao glared at her. The secretary could only hastily respond, all right, all right, all right. I understand. I'll get someone on it immediately. At this, Qin Hao nodded his head in satisfaction. He looked inside and started thinking to himself. It seemed that President Gu would not have much time for a meeting today. The meeting was about to begin but Madam was still inside. It was better for him to inform everybody to await further notice about the meeting. Meanwhile, inside, Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze skeptically. If you told someone else to do it, then you. Didn't he say that he would help her take a look at it? Gu Jingze's eyes crinkled in a smile. If I tell someone else to do it, we can use our time to. Lin Che was immediately pushed down, sending her into a state of shock. How mean. She had not come looking for him because of this. Lin Che kept feeling like she was the one who suffered a loss. She had clearly only asked Gu Jingze to take a look at the documents but in the end. Instead, she ended up having to offer her body to him. Was a table worth that much? Was she selling her body by doing this? She returned to the company with the document in hand. When she looked at the table, she did indeed find it much easier to understand and quickly got someone to start working on it. The staff in the company looked at the new table and bowed down one by one to Lin Che. They asked her, this looks like it's of such high quality. Sister Che, did you get a professional to do this? I think so, Lin Che said, her entire body aching. Of course, it had to be done by a professional. She had sold her body in exchange for it. The staff in the company said, Sister Che is truly a professional. She even asked a professional to help her out with a table. She thought to herself that this was not what she wanted either. Chapter 678. I will deal with Mo Hilling once and for all before the wedding. After sending Lin Che home that night. In no time, Gu Jingze received a call from Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing asked, why did I hear some rumors that you were going to marry Lin Che? Mother, I told you about this before at home, Gu Jingze said calmly. Mu Wanqing replied, I know, but on your grandfather's end. I don't care if grandfather doesn't like it. I've already gotten someone to prepare the wedding. Jingze, don't be impulsive. I know that you like Lin Che. I really like Lin Che too. But don't be at odds with your grandfather due to your aunt's instigation. You aunt will be glad if the two of you really get into an argument. Aunt is terribly wrong if she really thinks that she can ruin my relationship with the family because of a wedding. Ability determines everything. I'm the future head of the Gu family. She's delusional if she thinks that she can change the head of the family. Does she think that grandfather would put her in charge of the Gu family instead of me? Aunt is good at inciting trouble and grandfather does get angry, but in the end, I'm still the one who can be in this position. When the time comes, Aunt will regret opposing me today. Jingze, discuss this properly with your grandfather. He will agree. There is no need. I know my limits. Mother, don't worry. You fine, I can't be bothered with you anymore. Your father is wandering around outside and can't be bothered with you either. I'm just a woman. Even though you say that I make the decisions at home, the truth is that I can't take charge of so many things. All of you are grown up. I shouldn't be interfering. I'm just afraid that outsiders will make a fool out of you and use you in the end. But you're right, you've always been very independent and very capable. Nevertheless, you're my son after all. To a mother, a child will never grow up. That's why I definitely worry about you. Gu Jingze said, Mother, all right, I promise you. I will definitely deal with Mo Hilling once and for all before the wedding. So, grandfather won't continue being difficult towards you, right? Can you? Mu Wanqing was very skeptical. Gu Jingze smiled. Whether or not something is possible depends on the person. All right, I believe you. Only then did Mu Wanqing hang up the phone. Gu Jingze sucked in a deep breath and stood out. He walked out and looked downstairs while massaging his temple. However, just then, Qin Hao suddenly came in and said to Gu Jingze, Sir, there's a rumor going around. It concerns Madam. Gu Jingze turned around. What rumor? Qin Hao replied, you'll understand when you see it. Meanwhile, Lin Che had already seen it at home. Mo Hiling was going around saying that she was currently in the hospital and that her child's condition was very unstable because of Lin Che. Even though she was pregnant, Lin Che had chased her out of the restaurant and pushed her to the ground, causing pain in her womb. However, Lin Che actually left without even glancing at her. Right now, Gu Jingze had also turned his back on her. At a time like this, he actually did not care about the safety of his own child and wanted to have a wedding with Lin Che. Truly, he was only concerned about keeping his current lover happy and could not be bothered with the sadness of his former lover. Now that she was pregnant and alone outside, she was completely at a loss as to what to do. She seemed extremely miserable talking about it. She said that it was terrifying that the child was going to be fatherless the moment it was born. She also said that the child was innocent but Gu Jingze was too heartless. She even said that she thought of how her child would be all alone while he was holding a joyous wedding with Lin Che. The whole family would be so happy. But did they not feel uneasy at all? Everyone was saying that Gu Jingze was indeed too heartless. But comments about Gu Jingze had always been along the same lines. The only difference was that the rumors of him being merciless were previously only related to his business conduct, as he had always kept a low profile in his daily life. It was only now that people knew that he was like this in his daily life as well. Lin Che read the comments on the article as well. At the end, there was a comment saying that they could not tell that Gu Jingze was so heartless. At that, her heart wrenched painfully. Why were they criticizing Gu Jingze based on Mo Hiling's words alone? Gu Jingze was so morally upright, so good, and so. These people believed Mo Hiling too easily. Just then, Gu Jingze returned home. Lin Che was still fiddling with her phone. Upon seeing Gu Jingze come in, she hastily approached him and said, "You." Gu Jingze said, "I've already chosen a few wedding venues. Do you want to take a look?" Lin Che was a little confused. She hesitated for a bit and looked down. While clenching the phone in her hand, she said, "Is it really a good idea for us to have the wedding now? I think we should wait for a bit. To be honest, whether or not we have a wedding is not that important to me." Gu Jingze gazed at Lin Che deeply. He walked towards her and pulled her to her feet. "How silly. Did someone say something to you?" Lin Che looked up. "Actually, I really think that a wedding isn't necessary. Whether or not we get married isn't important. As long as the two of us can grow old together, a marriage certificate is just a formality. A wedding is even more so. I've already started dealing with it. You don't have to worry about this." "You're dealing with it? How are you going to do that?" Lin Che looked up and said in surprise. Gu Jingze made her sit down and said slowly to her, "I've already instructed people to find a way to have Mo Hiling do a DNA test." "How will they do that?" "They'll remove the umbilical cord of the fetus in her womb and do a DNA test. We'll be able to find out earlier exactly whose child it is. As long as we publicize the results of the test, no one will say anything anymore." Lin Che asked, "But can you do it if she doesn't want to do the test?" "She won't agree to it, so I'll get someone to do it secretly." "What do they actually have to do?" Lin Che asked. Gu Jingze looked down and stared at her. "It's a business tactic. You don't have to know." He did not want Lin Che to know about these tactics. He was willing to help her solve all problems, but he did not want her to bear the emotional burden. He said, "So, take your pick. Where exactly do you want to hold the wedding? You can tell me which location you like." Lin Che looked down only to see that the places he had chosen were all out of the country. It seemed very troublesome to hold a wedding overseas. Lin Che looked at the prices in detail and gasped internally in awe. Gu Jingze's phone started ringing. He glanced at Lin Che before going out to pick up the call. Qin Hao said, "I've already contacted the gynecologist and told him to anesthetize her in secret when he examines her. He'll take out the DNA we need for the test then. But if Miss Mo wakes up, she'll definitely realize. When that time comes. It's fine, she'll just kick up a fuss when she discovers it. If they extracted the DNA after anesthetizing Mo Hiling, there would be a mark where they extracted the DNA. She would definitely kick up a bit of a fuss when she woke up. However, the results of the test would come out soon at the time. She would know her place after causing some trouble. Chapter 679. They were actually taking such great pains for a wedding. However, the process would be slightly dangerous. There was a possibility that extracting the child's DNA in advance would cause danger to it. Furthermore, anesthetizing mohilling would possibly cause danger to the child as well. Hence, Qin Hao was worried that Gu Jingze would be criticized if the child was placed in danger. Lin Che was in the room looking at the wedding locations. France, the Great Barrier Reef, the Swan Lake, Manhattan, every location looked good. Upon seeing Gu Jingze, Lin Che asked, "About this, if we're having our wedding overseas, are we going to ask everyone to go and attend it?" "No, we're not inviting many people to our wedding. So even though all of them will have to go overseas, there probably won't be many people." Hearing this, Lin Che nodded her head in understanding. She figured that it made sense. Ordinary people probably could not attend Gu Jingze's wedding. So there will be around 20 to 30 people. Probably just more than 100 people. Alright, she had thought wrong. She thought that this was what he meant when he said there weren't many people going. More than 100 people then, how will they go there? On their own. They would be willing to go even if we made them go on their own. But it wouldn't look good on us to make them do that since we're the ones having our wedding there. When the time comes, I will dispatch all of our family's planes. All of our guests will probably be able to make it in time for our wedding then. It still sounds very troublesome. In that case, shouldn't I choose a closer place? Lin Che looked at the options and asked, Manhattan seems quite easy to access. If we choose it, how much do you think we'll spend? It probably won't cost more than 300 million. Not more than 300 million! Exclamation mark quote. Lin Che felt that he spoke as if he was talking about $300. But he was already talking in terms of hundreds of millions. Then, what about the Great Barrier Reef? This will probably be much cheaper because we can simply choose our family's holiday resort as the hotel. It will only cost about 200 million. Then France. It will definitely be expensive. We'll have to plan for the hotel, the local church, and everyone's attire. I think we will spend at least 500 million. Lin Che shuddered in fear. She suddenly hugged Gu Jingze's arm tightly and said with infinite sincerity, "Why don't you give me the money to look for a wedding planner? We can go to some village and have a wedding that's a bit more special. What do you think?" Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che. "Can you be more mature? I only get to marry my wife once in my lifetime. Even if we spend a lot of money, it's just this one time. If you don't treasure this chance, you won't get a second chance for the rest of your life." Lin Che smiled sheepishly. While smiling, she suddenly remembered what he had said. What did he mean when he said that it was a once-in-a-lifetime affair? She gazed at him and her face turned red immediately. She looked at Gu Jingze's mysterious eyes that were shrouded in mist. At the moment, they had a hint of arrogant gentleness. It truly made her feel a huge sense of sweetness. Gu Jingze was Gu Jingze. He was so charming even when he was saying romantic words. It was perhaps quite ordinary to other people. But when paired with his face, his words easily became very touching. He was so sweet. Gu Jingze was so good at saying romantic things. Furthermore, he was getting better and better at it and becoming more and more of a natural at it. Lin Che continued pestering him for a long time before Gu Jingze left again to work. He left Lin Che there to choose the location. Lin Che looked at them again and gasped internally at the prices. She thought of Shen Yoren and quickly sent her a WeChat message. "Yours truly is finally about to get a wedding that costs hundreds of millions. Do you know how much Gu Jingze wants to spend on our wedding? Even the cheapest costs 200 million. Shen Yoren was very surprised when she saw her message and immediately replied to her, "No way. It's so expensive. Is the great President Gu planning to cover the red carpet with gold?" Lin Che said, "It's a wedding. I guess it's alright to spend a lot of money. I don't think mine is considered very peculiar either. Previously, I heard that there was a celebrity who spent hundreds of millions on her wedding." Shen Yoren immediately said, "That's the result of roping in numerous sponsors. Your wedding isn't sponsored. Gu Jingze is the one paying for everything." Fine, she was right. Lin Che looked at the list of items for the wedding and truly felt that she was literally dreaming. The wedding was fit for a princess. Lin Che recalled that when she had married Gu Jingze back then, she had not had any expectations for their wedding at all. But now. The next day. Mo Hiling was looking at the results of her criticism towards Gu Jingze. She saw that everyone was talking about how Lin Che was totally a femme fatale who would put Gu Jingze in danger. They felt that Gu Jingze would definitely lose many things because of Lin Che. She scoffed and thought to herself that that was a matter of course. Lin Che had nothing to her name at all. She was just a poor woman. Being together with her would bring Gu Jingze no benefits at all. If that was all she amounted to, how could she not be embarrassed staying by Gu Jingze's side? Wasn't she being very shameless? In the afternoon, the doctor arranged a pregnancy checkup for Mo Hiling. Mo Hiling had been staying in the hospital, so the doctor pushed her out of her ward that afternoon. Just then, Mo Hiling's father came up to them. He looked at Mo Hiling and immediately said, "Hiling, I think nothing you do will work now. Look, even if you stay in the hospital and everyone else curses Gu Jingze out, it won't affect Gu Jingze and Lin Che's relationship at all. Everyone is afraid of Gu Jingze. Even if they criticize him behind his back, it's just some criticism. They definitely won't actually challenge with Gu Jingze." Mo Hiling retorted, "Of course it works. Look at how many people in the Gu family are scolding Lin Che. They will definitely know that Lin Che isn't a good person. Then, they wouldn't easily let Gu Jingze marry her." Her father immediately said, "Look at what's happening now. Everyone is saying that Gu Jingze has already started planning the wedding. He's inviting bids and the wedding is estimated to cost 300 million in funds. The people trying to bid are already at their wits' end." "What?" Mo Hiling took the phone from him and looked at it. It displayed details of the wedding. Looking at it, Mo Hiling was about to die from anger. Gu Jingze had actually planned such an expensive wedding for Lin Che. Was he insane? As she looked at the luxurious details of the wedding, she felt that any woman would have no regrets in her lifetime if she could have such a luxurious and expensive wedding. However, why did it have to be Lin Che? She scoffed enviously and threw the phone back to her father. Then, she said, "Humph. That's provided the wedding actually happens. But I won't let it happen." The doctor pushed her into the room. The ultrasound showed the size of the fetus. The doctor smiled and said, "Miss, the child is healthy." Mo Hiling merely looked up expectantly and asked, "Doctor, is the child male?" It's still too small. I can't tell." Hearing this, Mo Hiling immediately said impatiently, "What do you mean you can't tell because it's still too small? Don't you just want money? I'm telling you that as long as the child is male, he will be the successor of the Gu family. Money won't be a problem." The doctor said helplessly, "Miss, you've misunderstood. I'm telling you the truth. Don't get agitated. I can't tell the child's gender right now. When it grows a little, I will take a look at it for you. Have a drink first and lie down to rest. Don't get too worked up. It's not good for the child." Chapter 680. How dare he extract the DNA? A little later, Mo Hiling gradually fell asleep while lying there. The people at the back slowly walked out. "You've settled it, right?" "Yes, I can extract the DNA after this." "All right, go ahead. The payment from Sir is over there. You will be satisfied." Yes, of course, I know that." An hour later, a set of documents was dispatched from the hospital. Mo Hiling eventually woke up. She looked around while lying there and suddenly sensed that something was amiss. She looked down at her stomach and cried out in pain. Thereafter, she started shouting loudly. Doctor, what happened? What happened to my stomach?" Soon after, the doctor walked in and looked at Mo Hiling. "Miss Mo, don't get agitated. It will be very bad for the child if you get agitated. It's better for you to be careful." Mo Hiling looked at the doctor. She recalled everything that had happened before and immediately felt that something was wrong. She swiftly pulled the doctor by his collar and shook him. She asked him, "What in the world happened? Quick, explain it to me clearly. Otherwise, you're dead meat if I get a check-up at another hospital and find that there are other problems." "About this, Miss Mo, to be honest, this is nothing." When she saw how the doctor was behaving, the uneasiness in Mo Hiling's heart intensified instantly. She looked down and thought about it. An unpleasant thought crept into her heart. It suddenly occurred to her and she started yelling, did you extract something from my body? Ha, right. Don't think that I don't know. I know what this is. You were extracting my DNA for someone to do a DNA test. She looked up and asked in surprise, oh. It's Gu Jingze, right? It must be him, am I right? The doctor had already said before that she would definitely discover it. But Gu Jingze had also said that it did not matter even if she discovered it. Because once they got the DNA sample, Mo Hilling could kick up as much a fuss as she wanted to and it would not matter. The doctor shrugged Mo Hilling off and said, since you already know, don't make things difficult for me anymore. Forget the amount of money he gave me to settle this matter. Even if he gave me nothing, I would not dare to defy him if he asked me to do something either. Let go of me. If you continue to get agitated and lose your child, that will be even worse. Miss Mo, you should calm yourself down. You need to rest right now. You. Mo Hilling was very angry inside. However, there was nothing she could do about the doctor. Furthermore, not only was there nothing she could do about the doctor, she was completely unable to go up against Gu Jingze too. But as she clenched her fists, it occurred to her that Gu Jingze had done this only because he still suspected that there was something wrong with her child. If the test showed that the child was his, would there be a chance of turning the situation around? But naturally, she was still fuming inside. He clearly knew that doing this to her body was very bad for her and her child, but nevertheless, Gu Jingze did it anyway. Wasn't he afraid that she would suffer a miscarriage immediately? Or did he think that it would be better for her to lose the child? Mo Hilling thought angrily to herself, fine. Since Gu Jingze had given her such a huge present, she had to give Lin Che a present that was about the same. She could not bear to hurt Gu Jingze. Perhaps it was more accurate to say that she did not dare to hurt him and she didn't have the ability to hurt him either. But there were still many ways for her to hurt Lin Che. Although Mo Hilling would deny it to her grave, it seemed that Lin Che was now Gu Jingze's Achilles heel. If she was hurt, Gu Jingze would be hurt too. Mo Hilling sneered and said, you wanted to get married, right? I'll see how you get married, humph. Mo Hilling whipped out her phone and called Li Mingyu very quickly. Gu Jingze is too much. He actually extracted blood from my child's umbilical cord to do a test. He's not worried at all about the problems it will cause to my child. I want to get revenge. What? He extracted blood from the umbilical cord? Li Mingyu was obviously angry as well. He thought to himself that this was his child. If Gu Jingze caused his child's death, Li Mingyu would not let him off no matter what. For sure, Gu Jingze deserved punishment for daring to treat his child this way. Of course, Li Mingyu really wanted to cause trouble for Gu Jingze since he had been unhappy with Gu Jingze for a long time. Li Mingyu, I remember what you told me about Lin Che's family matters before. You said something about her father being the mayor of B City. Lin Che did not expect Lin Yukai to suddenly call her when she was having a hard time making a decision. As she had not been in contact with her family for a long time, Lin Che found it a little strange when she suddenly saw her father's number. Every time Lin Yukai approached her, it was never for something good. She wondered what had happened again this time. Lin Che thought about it for some time. She was still curious about what trouble he was facing again. Besides, even if she did not pick up his call, he would definitely find some other way to let her know that something was really up. There was no need for him to go to such lengths. Lin Che picked up his call. On the other end of the line, Lin Yukai said anxiously, Lin Che, little Che, my daughter. You must save me this time. Save this father of yours. Lin Che just knew it. She sat there and heaved a sigh before asking, what's up? What happened? My superiors suddenly ran a check on my assets. My assets with the Swiss bank have been exposed. If they really continue with their investigations, my position may be at stake. I know that you're successful now. You have Gu Jingze to back you up and the entire Gu family to support you. Just a word from you and this can be resolved easily. You must help your father out. Lin Che was literally about to laugh upon hearing Lin Yukai's anxious tone. This time, he had humbled himself only because he really was anxious. Over the phone, he sounded as if he was about to cry. Father, do you think that I've forgotten what you did to my mother and me back then? Lin Yukai hastily said, my daughter, I was wrong for doing those things. But it was really your stepmother. No, she's now your Aunt Han who had forced me to do them. I've already chased her out of the house. I've already divorced her as well. Very soon, I will place your mother's tablet in our ancestral hall and confer upon her a proper title. You. Don't, father, don't you dare do that. You would be insulting my mother. Lin Che immediately hung up once she was done speaking. She looked up to see Gu Jingze emerging from inside after just taking a shower. What happened? Lin Che glanced at her phone and said, "No, it's just my father. He said that they may have conducted investigations on him. He deserves it anyway. Corruption is wrong, to begin with. He has so much in savings and so many properties. Who knows where all this dirty money came from? The salary of a mayor is definitely not that high. They've conducted investigations against him." Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes. Why, is there something wrong with it? Lin Che felt that Gu Jingze's expression was slightly strange. Gu Jingze nodded. It's bad for your reputation.